Coming up on this week's episode, why do you think you had the traits internally to go, enough's enough, I need to sort through this?
There was a push in me. I just wanted better tomorrow. I had a want to live. I had this internal dialogue, turn this around. I was running programs for women to help them understand their patterns. How do the kids get access to money? Parents are struggling, but they want to make those changes for their children. We rely on getting funding to be able to remove that financial barrier. The results are just been amazing. When I have like the kids that I'm working with say to me like, you saved me. I started listening to what's my body need firstly. What do I need mentally as well? I am so proud of myself. I'm honestly so proud of myself.
Some stories don't just stay with you, they change you. Janelle Parsons' journey is one of those stories. Born into a world marked by fear, silence, and survival, she spent her early years searching for safety that never came. But through deep personal adversity, she uncovered a quiet strength and a fierce determination to transform pain into purpose. Now a counsellor, advocate, and founder of Rise and Thrive, Janelle is helping vulnerable adolescents rewrite their own futures, offering support where it's needed most. In this episode, we explore themes of resilience, recovery, and generational change. Some of the content may be emotionally heavy, but Janelle's story is ultimately one of profound hope, healing, and human connection. All right, let's get into it. Janelle Parsons, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me, Richard.
This is going to be an incredible conversation, I can already tell. And having read your book and understanding your history, it's so profound what you had to endure as a child and as an adult. But to be able to see somebody go through that, go through the journey of repair and recovery and acceptance, and then turn your life into a journey of inspiration and help is the reason why we started this show, you know, and so I can't thank you enough for being the person that you are, but also for coming and spending time here to, I guess, inspire others and share the understanding of this topic. So take me back to the people that need to know your story. Let's go right back.
Okay.
You're a child.
Yep.
And up until at some point, I think you said at the beginning of primary school, you know, you were exposed to domestic violence. Up until then, though, life's normal as a 5-year-old, as far as you're aware.
As far as I can remember and recall, yeah. Like, but you go through on writing my book and having to sit and reflect on those memories that come through to me. Like, at what point made it stick that this happened here? Domestic violence, who knows? I can't speak for the younger person than when I was recalling at 6 years of age. So there could have been grooming. There was always violence. It's intergenerational. And it just at that point, it was like a crossroad.
It was directed at you then?
Directed, yeah.
And you've obviously given permission to talk about it openly, and your book's very open about it and so confronting. And as I said to you off air, you know, this topic for me, for whatever reason, is so challenging for me to accept or at least to embrace. And I think I can't be the only one that struggles with it, right?
Yeah.
Walk us through what that looks like as a 6-year-old in that environment.
Feeling powerless, not knowing if the footsteps are going to go past your doorway or if they're coming into your room, going to school, feeling like you were vulnerable, like everyone knew, but no one did. And I grew up in a really rough environment. Like, I grew up in the bush in Mount Isa. It was a pretty rough, cruel world out there then. And I didn't know who to turn to. We didn't have the help that we have now. We didn't have the intervention helping like we have now. And I was constantly living in a state of fear.
Yeah. And this is from your father, who would come and essentially, at any given time, would essentially physically assault you.
Well, it was always with him. It was always something that set him off. It wouldn't just be like at any given time. It could have been stuff that happened at work, stuff happened with mum, or I never knew. This is the thing as a child, you don't know what's going to set them off. So it just feels like it's happening whenever.
Yeah.
But being an adult now, looking back in, I had no idea when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen, whether I was going to be in trouble. Like, you just always lived in fear. Yeah.
The complicitness of your mother I struggled with as well. So her role, not that I can't obviously speak for her, or none of us can speak for her, I guess, but you are getting like beaten, not your siblings, but just you, and your mum is essentially letting that happen and watching it unfold.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to heal from that part. As a child, looking up, begging her to stop it and feeling like she just didn't want to stop it. That's how it made me feel when I was young. Now looking back in, like we spoke about off air before, I don't know what her decision-making process was, what led her to that. Was she a victim herself? Like, what's her intergenerational patterns? I don't know her as an adult to have these conversations on reflection with her. But as a child, I felt completely abandoned by her. I felt she failed me. I felt she couldn't keep me safe. And I was heartbroken. I was a little girl just wanting to be safe.
And recall the story about her emptying your father's beer bottles.
Yeah, so Dad obviously had an alcohol problem, and I remember one night my sisters and I were all sitting around the dinner table.
How old are you here?
Oh gosh, I'd have to think back. I was a little bit older. I was
8.
Yeah, I was getting more 8 to 9 in that area, and my sisters and I were sitting at the table. We were eating dinner, and Dad was outside getting violent. He was very intoxicated at the time, and Mum had had enough. So she poured his beers out. And when he couldn't go and find any new beer, he lashed out and he came barging up the back door, grabbed her by the throat and pushed her up against the kitchen cabinets. And that was the very first time I've ever can recall seeing my dad lay his hands on my mother. And
at that stage, you'd never seen that. So you'd only see him lay into you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I had never seen it. And so then I don't know what it was in me, but I wanted to keep her safe. And so I jumped up. I pulled on his leg. I got kicked away. So I ran to the phone and I called my pop. He was in town.
Mother's dad?
My father's dad.
Your father's dad?
Yeah, I called my pop and he was straight around. And it was, the adults took care of the adults. The kids all got taken to a different room. But that upsets me even now because as a child I wanted to protect her, but I didn't feel she was willing to protect me. Yeah.
And then you say in your book that when Pop left,
I got in trouble because I shouldn't have made the phone call. So.
And on top of all of that, you go into this horror scenario at school, whereby you tell the story there
of when I'd get dropped at school.
Well, that as well broke my heart.
Or the dentist.
Yeah, the dentist is what I was referring to. But but getting dropped at school, you've got this. Seems like obviously this. You're so vulnerable, and you just don't know. You're clinging to your mum, right?
Yeah, I used to. I didn't want to leave. I didn't know where I felt safe, and I just longed for that love, that nurturing motherly bond where. Even if my anxiety was peaking, and this is a pattern of what happens with children that have come from a DV home as well, school necessarily isn't always safe. We don't know who we are. Everything's scary to us. The big world is scary to us.
Well, yeah, and they talk about that when you put kids through school is that home is safe, and so usually the kids will act out at home and melt down at home because it's a safe place, and then they be on their best behavior at school because they don't know what's up or down and they're just trying to toe that line. But your home is not safe and school's not safe. And so I can understand you clinging to something that's consistent.
And when you're that emotional and raw as a child, not knowing what's safe, and you cling on wanting support and you get shaken off, dragged back to the classroom, get told you're just being silly, like everyone's looking at you, everyone's going to laugh at you. It just really amplified that stress that I was already feeling. And I've never actually shared, other than my book, the story of the dentist public. So this will be the first time on air. But I'm here for it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were 9
Yep.
at primary school.
Yeah.
And you so eloquently write it. It in a way puts you right there, which is, I guess, is the purpose of it. But it's the routine dentist
The
checkup,
dental van.
the dental van at school.
Yeah.
And at that stage, did you have any, like, you're still working your way through, obviously, the horrors at home that are continuing and your place at school. But other than the dental van position, did school otherwise feel that your safety was at risk?
No. Actually, no. It was, my grandmother was a psychologist and she worked with the Salvation Army and she looked after the vulnerable women and children. And it's a really Indigenous population there. So we would have I sort of grew up in a lot of ways with her in the shelter area, with the Indigenous kids coming through as well. So, and in that sort of regional, rural area, it's a high difference mix in race. And so that I was always looked after. Like, my nickname was Little White Gin. That was, sorry if I'm offending anybody with that, but that's what the Indigenous kids they labelled me with, because I was with them. I grew up with them. So in some ways I felt safe. I felt a part, like I belonged. I did have some people there.
Yeah, right.
So it was good for me. Yeah.
And so then the day comes to get your routine dental van check.
Yeah, we go sit back then. You just get like a call sheet to your classroom. They had no PA systems like we do now, and you'd walk down across the oval into the dental van. And I remember walking in, and the smell of disinfectant. It was like I wrote in the book. It just salted my nostrils. The smell was so strong, and it's funny when you go through some traumatic experiences, smells can take you straight back there.
Yeah.
And there was a older girl sitting, and I'll never forget, she had auburn hair, like plaits that came over her shoulders. And they said, the nurse came out and said, next. I obviously was there after her, so I thought she was to go in first. But she said, no, you're going in first. I'll go in after you. I was like, again, being very compliant, didn't want to disappoint anyone, the fear of getting in trouble. I toddled off, went in, got placed on the dental bed, and introduced the male dentist and the dental nurse. And they caped, put all the dental gowns, all that sort of stuff on. She touched my shoulder and she said, don't worry, little one, I'll be back soon. I just have to go and get something. Again, I didn't know any different. And he then commenced to talking about likening to touching pussies. Was what he said. I had a jumper that across the top had a cat, and its paw was hanging down, and there was like 3 mice on trying to jump up to strings. So it was an innocent jumper, and he kept making that reference. And then he began to groom me, try to touch me. His hand went under my jumper, and things happened. And then the school nurse came back. The dental nurse came back in. After that, I didn't say anything. Didn't know what just happened. I was so scared.
And he had told you not to tell anyone.
Yeah. Obviously, like, they don't want people to know. If you do tell someone, you're going to get in trouble. So then for me, I'm like, if I did even tell my parents, they're not going to believe me. I'll get called a liar. I'm going to then get in trouble. I didn't want to be hit or abused or mentally, emotionally just because I didn't do anything wrong. I was a part of something that I didn't even know was happening. I didn't even understand what just happened. And then I just went back to class, and it was lunch. And then I had a lady from the office come and collect me. And I had to walk across. So back in the day, Van Nuys, we had the outdoor basketball courts, and they were bitumen courts. Like, it was a hot day, and I'll never forget it. I'm walking across these courts and just got heckled and stuff, like, the whole way, like, oh, little white gin's in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And they kept going on at me. So I didn't know what I was doing. And I got to the office, And they took me through the deputy principal's doors, and there's my mum sitting there with the deputy principal. Still, I had no idea. What? Am I in trouble for something?
Same day.
Same day. Yeah, same day. And then after that, I was like sitting in the room, but I didn't understand what was going on. Like, I don't recall a lot of voices. I was in a state of shock in a way. After that happened, I then had to go to the hospital and the police station because we had to do statements of what had just happened to me. And
the lady with the girl with the auburn hair was the instigator of that.
Well, they caught him. Like, she was almost, knowing what I know now, she was placed there to catch him out. I wasn't the first one he'd done this to.
Right.
So I felt like I was bait, and that was a really disturbing feeling when, again, all I wanted my mum to do was hold me, talk me through it, not make me feel like I did something wrong, I'm dirty, and it's a secret. And she dropped me at my nan's house, and she didn't even walk me up the stairs. She just said, I don't want to talk about this. It's disgusting. Like, you go and speak to your nan. She knows, she'll deal with that. My nan was beautiful. Thank God I had her. And she met me at the top of the stairs with a little trauma teddy and took me into, like, we had a big family, lots of cousins. So the house was massive. And she'd walk me into, like, the grandchildren's room, and she sat with me and she was like, this isn't your fault. Like, I'm here for you. And when these emotions get big, hold your teddy. And yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And then, so then after that, home life is the same?
Yeah, the abuse happens. I found out that my dad did try to chase that guy out of town with a bunch of his mates. So on one hand, I have this male in my life who was physically abusive to me, but would still fight and defend me. And then I had the contrast of the neglectful abandonment feelings I had for my mother, who again just dropped me off and couldn't engage with me, looked at me like there was something wrong with me. So I don't know, I can't speak for them, like what happened in their minds after that event, but like the DV just kept going. I think I started pushing back a lot more because I was sick of getting hurt. And it was just, you'd have great days, you'd have great times. It wasn't all bad. I had two sisters that I loved with all my heart, and all I wanted to do was protect them. And yeah.
You say, you have this sentence in the book as well that is like, that just dropped me, where it was like, despite all of this, you were so willing at that point, you were so eager to impress or so eager to do the right thing for them because you're just yearning for their love and their support.
And you know different, right? I learned very early on in life that pain equaled love.
And that was almost your connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrific. And so you became a child of the state, though, to talk to me through.
So the abuse and the fighting, everything just kept getting worse and worse. And it got to a point where we had moved from Mount Isa to Harvey Bay, and there was just a lot going on. And with that, my grandmother was staying with us, and she intervened. She's like, we can't keep Janelle. You're not doing a good enough job keeping Janelle safe. She'll be turning 17 soon. I think this is the best thing for her to do. So they took me down to the local government agency, my nan, my mum and I.
At 16? 16
and a half, so I was turning 17. So, and at that point they were like, oh, well, you can get like Oz study or whatever it is. I don't know now, but I got enrolled in TAFE to become a hairdresser. So I was doing study, lived in a share house, and I had turned 17 then, and it was very different. I had a single bed in a laundry room, and my cupboards were cardboard boxes with a sheet hung over them. Just a party house with so many different ages, so many different people coming through, and yeah.
Adults as well?
Yeah.
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 Not just adolescent.
No.
During that period of time, are you in contact with your parents?
I would always try because I was so confused, like there was one point where I had to move out of that share accommodation and I reached out to my mum. I'm like, I've got nowhere to go. Can I come home? And her words to me were, I'll speak to your father. And she got back to me and said, you can come home for a short term, but the minute any shit starts, Janelle, you're out. Life's been good. You're not here. So again, I was blamed and shamed and made to feel like I was the problem. Yeah, which is rubbish.
Yeah. Going into adulthood, was there a tipping point in your 20s where you had to, we talk about this whole journey for you and where everyone has to, if they're working with any sort of trauma, you have to go on this path of almost reconciliation and acceptance and ownership. Was there a trigger point? Was there a T intersection where you said, enough's enough, I need to do this for myself?
When I was 18.
Really?
Yeah. There's so many moments in my life where I didn't care if I lived or I died. I was reckless. I became a product of what I was created in. And there was a turning point when I was 18. And it was the first and only time one of my sisters and I went out clubbing together. And something happened that night. Nothing bad happened. It's just something happened internally in me. And I was like, yeah, I'm starting this path, making these changes. I don't want to be what's always been done to me. And that was also the moment where I had to start sitting with those ugly parts of myself. What I thought was shameful, what I thought was a reputation, all those sorts of labels that we give ourselves or other people we allow to give us. I had to just take them on and ask myself, like, is that who I am? Really? And it never, ever was. I had to learn to forgive myself for the decisions I made to survive.
That's not nothing. That's a huge process.
Yeah.
And particularly when you have to accept what's happened to you, or what you've been part of. And then secondly, take extreme ownership of your role in that, in what you had, and some things you had no control over, some things you had lots of control.
And that process took years. It wasn't like people go, oh, like, how did you get here? What makes you, what's your driving force? What makes you get here? Like that span of events, that took like a decade. And I still constantly have to do work. Yeah. You never can stop doing work. You're never fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and particularly when I think if you've experienced trauma in your adulthood, your adult life, your ability to respond and your tools that you have in your repertoire are it's fair connection with, you go back to your inner child and you go back to how you were treated and that environment that you grew up in. And whereas for you, your inner child has all of this experience and all the trauma is, and I know you've had to endure your own adult trauma as well, but you can't go back to that inner child because that inner child is not safe. That inner child does not have the blueprint, the exposure of how to deal with problematic situations effectively. So the amount of work, I think, is 2 times, 3 times, 10 times harder for you because you don't have that inner child that's ready to help.
I also didn't know any different though. So I can reflect and look at someone who has not endured DV and child abuse and everything that I have, and I don't understand how it feels to have a loving, safe home as a child. So it's that two-sided of societal's views of how do these two parallels line up? Like,
but there would be a lot of people I could imagine who have had similar, worse, maybe less experience as children, and just continued the path of the intergenerational problems.
Yeah, or drug addicts, alcoholics.
Correct.
Like
just
dead.
push. Yeah. And push away how confronting it is to embrace and sit in it, like we talked about. Why do you think you had the traits internally to go, enough's enough? I need to sort through this.
There was a push in me. I get asked that question so often, and I just wanted a better tomorrow. I had a want to live, and I had this internal dialogue like going, turn this around. Like, and now I'm in the position where I have. But I mean, you talk about like the adult trauma and stuff I've had and all that resilience and things I've built up because what I did when I experienced as a child. If I feel as though if I hadn't have experienced those things as a child and got tough, you and I wouldn't be here talking now.
Yeah, and so that leads into, as an adult, you're in a relationship that turns into a fairly horrific domestic violence situation itself.
That was probably the worst that I had experienced. Yeah.
That almost in itself, you've done this work at 18 and it's taken a decade, but then you've also find yourself in the exact environment that your inner child knows pain equals love, and it's so familiar, however uncomfortable physically. And I said to you, I struggle with this, and because on one part, I can't understand how the situation arises in the first place, but on another part, I can understand how, if you are on a date, your first date, and that person hits you in the face, you're not having a second date. You don't have that connection. You're like,
you're done.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll take the check. In fact, you take the check. I'm out.
Yeah.
But it is this. I can understand. I guess that it is a death by 1,000 cuts. It is just almost impossibly to see the incremental increase in violence in a relationship. It
doesn't start with violence in a physical sense at all, though. Like you start seeing the shorter fuses or the neediness that they need to have your attention constantly, or in this case, when my perpetrator's child would come, it would then be that was the triggering point.
Right.
Whatever their own issues were, and it just kept going. But
it's also challenging as well, right? Because in any relationship, people are going to have short fuses or are going to you're going to have a disagreement, and do you go, well, you're not going to stop a relationship because you've had a verbal Barney in the kitchen, right? And so there is that difficult gray area where you're like, well, that was not okay. Yeah. And I guess the correct way of dealing with it is to have a debrief afterwards.
But that's where coercion comes in, right?
Yeah, sure.
When you're getting groomed, where you feel like there's the beat down, whether it's verbally, emotionally, physically, mentally, however it is being directed at you, and then it's the love bombing. I was a bad person. I acted this way to you. I'll never do it again. I love you. Here's a gift for you. Here's this. Let's work on this together. So you hold hope. There's feelings invested. And the good times are amazing. The bad times you wish never happened at all. Yeah. And the scariest thing is with what I went through as a child, it was almost predictable. Like you learnt the signs. In the adult relationship I was in, couldn't pick it. The ups and downs were just erratic.
And I agree with you, and it is inspiring that, I guess, your view of the situation, in the sense that you got out of that because of your experience, right? That's what you're saying. Yeah. You're saying I became so strong to get out of it, which I understand is not so. Requires so much strength from someone in that environment, and someone who's under that much control. Was there a point before you got out where you were like, oh shit, I'm right back into this in the same situation? Or are you, I don't know, how are you reconciling? Because I imagine doesn't catch you by surprise after the 50th attempt at.
No, it doesn't. I got tough. I got mad back in my own way, because I was like, yeah, nah, no way. I know this. this is not my life. Now things are going to, like, I'm doing this, I'm out. And I said to myself so many times, I'm strong enough to stand up to him. And I even had exes of his even reach out and say, like, no one's ever been strong enough to stand up to him. And so I felt like I had this weight, like if his parents couldn't have intervened and they didn't get him the help he needed when he was younger, he's a product of what's been created in so many ways as well, being unsupportive. So I had empathy in some ways, in some hands, and in the other way I was like, nah, this stops today. Like, get out of my life.
And so you got orders and restraining orders.
Well, I was getting strangled, and it was said, do you want your kids to see their mother die today? While I was getting strangled. And of course I don't want my kids to see that, right? And so the neighbours had called the police. The police had arrived. He had heard sirens coming. So he grabbed his daughter and threw her in his ute.
A child from a previous relationship?
Yeah, not ours. We never had kids together. I already had my 2. He had his 1.
Yep.
And I'll never forget the look on her face as he's just tied her up with a seatbelt and just sped away. And so I'm at home, just locked all the doors because the police called and they were like, have you got any like little dowels like you can put into, because I had all sliding doors everywhere. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And they said, get all his stuff, pack it up. Have it all ready. When the officers arrive, they'll take you through what to do next, and yeah, we'll be there soon. They arrived. The call out went for his car and the rego and all the rest of it. They found him. And yeah, so they took me out the front, and the officer was talking to me, and then another officer stayed inside with my kids. And
how old are your kids at this stage?
6 and 5. Yeah. And my daughter had just had surgery as well, so she was not able to get around as much. She just had tonsils and adenoids and everything done. And I remember, they still remember to this day, they were sitting on a couch watching Peppa Pig with a police officer,
Sure.
And I tried to say to them, people go to hospital and get taken away because they break an arm or they have cancer or they're not well. In this situation, this person is mentally unwell, and mums had to be really strong and get that person removed to get them the help they need so they can be the best that they can be. Because I didn't want my children carrying that unwanted legacy of pain equals love. I wanted them to see their mum being strong. Also empathy of helping someone who is the perpetrator to get the help that they needed.
That's so strong. And it's because of that event the restraining orders came.
Yeah. So I went through the court. He pleaded guilty to everything. So then it was, he had to do 100 hours community service, had to do men's making change programs, got all the court orders put on him, and
Can't be within a certain radius of you. And
Yep. I had a business as well. I had a hair salon, but it's classed as a public place, right? Yeah. So it wasn't a place of residence. So there was a grey area loophole there, like how was I safe to work? And eventually, like, there was 70 breaches in total of his orders. So he did go back to court 2 more times, pleaded guilty every single time, kept getting out, never served any jail time.
And now?
I have no idea, and I am so happy to have no idea. That is staying done and dusted.
How long ago was that?
2015, 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're almost a decade clear.
Yeah. But it took a long time to, like, the drop of a broom, the loud shut of a door,
Sure.
a glass breaking. I would jump through my skin. I lived in constant fear because of when these orders happened, the breaches he did. I wasn't safe.
No. You're constantly in fight or flight.
Well, he'd show up. He showed up at the safe house where I was. Like, he knew. Like, so I was never felt safe. It took such a long time to calm down my nervous system to actually feel safe. Yeah.
Yeah. And that has like detrimental health impacts as well when your nervous system is heightened for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
Like the flight and fight system is only meant to be hit for every 5 or 6 minutes and then you calm down.
Yeah.
But every time that's hitting, the broom drops, the glass breaks or whatever. Wow. And so, and I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's
And, but like what I find so inspiring is that you've, despite your childhood, almost in spite of that, and what you had to experience as an adult, you've turned that around and you've been able to find your purpose almost.
Yeah. I've had to learn to be gentle with myself.
Because your health hasn't always been, which is also just the next layer of this ridiculously incredible story, Janelle. Your health hasn't always been there for you.
Yeah.
And so, what, late 20s? Early 30s?
Yeah. So I had ovarian cancer first. I had that ovary removed, and then I ended up having a full hysterectomy at 34 due to cervical cancer. But like I said,
you say that so nonchalantly, like that.
Like, it's just I had the shit cut out of me. That's why I look at it. Like,
well, that was so like, and I reflected with my partner last night about our chat because, like, you sort of said that it was almost, and it's the way you viewed it, but also obviously that wasn't manufactured. You genuinely felt it.
Yeah.
That it was like you had shed some part of you that you didn't want, or that I don't know how you put it.
It was a residue of like. Because I've done all sorts of like inner connection work. I went down rabbit holes trying to explore all different avenues, and they kept saying like the female reproductive organs, where you hold a lot of the anger and you hold all this. Like, look at my past life growing up. Of course, there was going to be issues with them. How could it not be? Like, what? So it was the day that I was laying on the operating table to have my hysterectomy, and I just had this wave of peace come over me, knowing that when I woke up, all that I've done, all this physical work, mental work, spiritual work, emotional, everything. And I felt like this was that last clean out. It was gone, and I wasn't going to have any more pain anymore. And I haven't. It's been brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's we're at, I don't know, over 100 interviews, and this is your story is so, I say inspiring, and I don't say that loosely. And
thank you.
Only because there were so many opportunities for you to play the victim, to stay the victim. And I think, if people listening or people who come across into your sphere and learn your past or learn what you've gone through and learn where you're going, and with this incredible charity, like it provides us with the candle gets lit as to what's possible.
Yeah.
And you can endure that and go, okay, that's happened, but it's up to me now to deal with that and keep going.
Yeah, and everyone can change. Everyone can.
So at what point where was that transition from working with in cutting hair to then going, actually, there is a gap here in adolescence to help?
I guess I always knew it, and it wasn't changing, and I was getting parents and adolescents through my cell doors all the time and hearing all the stories. I'm like, shit, nothing's changed in all these years. So 2019, I'd finished writing my memoir. 2021, it got released. In that period, I studied and became a counsellor, and I was running programs for women to help them understand their patterns, to learn to be better mothers on the back end of trauma, of whatever way that may have been. And I was like, you know what, this area isn't where it needs to be. That nothing's changed from what I went through to still today. And even now, like that was 2020, 21. We're in 25, and it still isn't happening. you know.
So your position is that there is otherwise sufficient protection for kids.
Yep.
And once you're an adult, there are all these things that
All
are
the
available
resources.
to you.
Yeah.
But there's just this, and such an important period of time for a child's life.
It's critical.
From in adolescence, that there seems to be not a lot of work, not a lot of help there.
They're too old to be protected by the child mental health services and all that comes with that. They're too young to be navigating into the adult trauma space.
Mm.
So we've got a window of once a teenager turns 15, turning 16, they're cut off, basically. We have got such a flawed system where these kids need help the most and they're falling through the cracks. No government agencies. I mean, you can look at psychology and counselling waitlists to work with adolescents. You're looking 6 to 12 months or even more because it's such a risky age area to work in. You know, parents want schools to take the accountability and help their kids. Schools' hands are tied at a certain part, but then there's no government agencies that, you know, and it falls short.
Mm. And so Rise and Thrive.
Yeah.
As a charity.
Yep.
Yeah, when did that start?
So it was starting, slowly dripping through. And then I was like, you know what, I could get this thing registered.
Yeah.
How do we go about doing that? So that was February last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been like 13, 14 months into it. And we've already worked with 98 students across the Sunshine Coast.
And you've said you got an incredible board, but
yeah,
you are the only boot on ground.
Yeah, I am.
And so that just shows to me like and the fact you've helped 100 already. There's so much, there's so much capacity and so much growth.
There's such a need for it. It's a demanding need. Like I've getting schools reach out to me all the time. How do we go about getting you in here? What can we do? How does it and it comes down to funding a lot of the time, because the biggest factor that I will always stand by at Rise and Thrive, I won't have a participant pay out of their own pocket. How do the kids get access to money? Like how if parents are struggling but they want to make those changes for their children. So we rely on getting funding to be able to remove that financial barrier for them. Yeah. And we were lucky, like last year we got a few grants and got into the schools, and the results are just, the stats just been amazing. And we just need to keep carrying that forward. Showing up in a space, we're outreach, so we don't have the expectation of the adolescents coming to us. We go to them.
Yeah, okay.
And by doing that, it's instantly in what already feels like a safer space. Because as a teenager, I went to counselling, I've done those things, but the whole way there, I was getting drilled. You don't say this, you do say that, blah, blah, blah. On the way back, boom, 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 in reverse. That's not how kids feel seen. That's not how they feel heard. You just need to offer a space for them.
And you're almost finished your bachelor's of psychology.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what has that process taught you, or what have you learnt through that with your own experience?
So having the lived experience going through with now the academia to match it to, my goal is to change legislation, to push back hard on government. And so getting that qualification on paper, that almost gives you that door starting to open, because people are going to take you seriously, because, here we go. We're not just another lived survivor, because I have been stereotyped as that many a times when I've tried to get inroads with changing, like, let's fight, let's try to change this. This isn't good enough. And you get dismissed really easily. So I feel by doing this and doing it in the capacity that I'm doing it in, it just legitimizes everything else I'm doing.
Oh, that's impressive. What is is it the change legislation? Is it what's the ultimate?
Yeah, so I want to go on to finish a PhD. So I'm on my pathway to doing that. And there's been moments where I go, oh, shit, like this is just so much study. It's so much on me. But how else does it change happen if someone's not willing to do the work? So I'd love to go in, and the area that I want to do my PhD on is adolescents in court, because that adult jargon that gets fed to them and not looking at the whole case, that historical case. So what I struggle understanding is currently here in Australia, if they don't get help from 15 to 18, but yet they can get jailed for life at 10. Like, do the math. That does not work.
Mm.
And we need to work with adolescent perpetrators as well to help them understand that just because that may have happened to them or they've been witness to it, that we need to give them coping strategies so they don't become the adult version that we see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like no child will voluntarily act that way unless they've been exposed to that environment in some capacity. And to be able to work through that or give them the tools or at least the opportunity to see that they can be a circuit breaker to that cycle would go a long way, I would imagine.
When I have like the kids that I'm working with, and not kids, adolescents that I'm working with say to me like, "You saved me. I didn't want to die. Just wanted the pain to stop. No one's ever listened. I get told that I'm the problem." So it's not we're not just telling them what they want to hear. We're giving them coping strategies and it's just change their life.
It's so inspiring, Janelle. How has parenthood impacted you?
I've been a single parent since they were 2 and 3. And they're my reason why. They really are. I put all the good parts of me and I hold boundaries with them. I give them room to learn and then explain things. And it's like they're 16 and 18 this year.
Wow.
I'm like, yes, I got them through. And they're just really good humans.
But they're right in the adolescent pocket right now.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
So they see this as well, you know, like they see what's going on with friend groups or what they see that's happening on TikTok and like mental health struggles and all the rest of it. And I've always raised them with having empathy, not sympathy. Don't sympathize with someone because then you're absorbing their problem. It's not yours. But you can be a good friend and you need to call them out when they're not making the right decisions, but hold yourself accountable if you've made a mistake. So, yeah.
How do they view Mum?
Oh, gosh. Well, they knew I was coming in and doing all this and stuff today. And, like, my son fist pumps me. Like, I'm his basketball coach as well. Like, we've just got back from going to an Australian basketball tournament. So
that's amazing.
I'm the head coach of a senior boys basketball team. And, yeah, they have respect for Mum because Mum gives them respect. The love we have, like we're a really close unit. We're very open with each other. I mean, they hold me accountable as well.
Yeah.
Which it's a healthy dynamic. And sure, there's struggles. Like nothing's ever perfect. But it's how we work through that.
How do you now invest time into yourself, let's say, in relation to self-care and self-preservation and looking after yourself on a daily, weekly basis? What does that look like for you?
I really learned how to fine-tune into how I'm feeling. Nutrition's a really big thing for me. Like I have had some health issues in the past as well. And so I started listening to what's my body need firstly? What do I need mentally as well? And it used to scare me when I'd have those days where my mind would race ahead of me and you could feel like, oh my gosh, what's happening? What's happening next? And you could feel a panic raising and you didn't know why. Like nothing was really bad anymore. I haven't had any, like there hasn't been any violence, not for like a long time now. Like, but there's moments still where you can feel yourself slipping. And now it's all about, okay, walking is hugely important to me. Basketball is another really important part of my, like I say, basketball's my therapy. Like I just love it. There's that, it's got structure to it. It's got that fast-paced nature to it. It has you got to be calculated. So really,
you're talking to an NBA fanboy.
Yeah. So it works for me, right? And just giving myself space, but also enjoying the simple, small moments.
So where would you, putting your psychology degree on, you know, if you are sitting there with and everyone's trauma is their own.
Uh-huh.
I can appreciate that, and what you can only compare that to what your own lived experiences and what you're going through. But what do you think people should? How can people work through their own trauma to get to let that go and to be able to turn, to create a new chapter of their life?
I think that's a really big question, and I think so many people come in with that they should just get over it. It should just change, make a change in your life. It took me over a decade to make that change. That wasn't just on one straight road. I hit the potholes. People are going to hit the downtimes, and it's still trying to find the peace, trying to find their why in any moment. It's like the baby step. And yeah, you can have a roadmap. You can have that clear direction. I want to get from here to here. But if you're so heavily solution focused, if and when you do arrive there, that's not going to be your end line. It's going to move again because you're searching for a quick fix. We need to make really sustainable steps in making that progress so that when you do go sideways or backwards, you can catch yourself if no one else is there to catch you, and then pick yourself back up. And we need to stop the beating ourselves up in that moment.
Hold ourselves
Just
soft.
be more gentle, and that's the hardest thing to ever do. One of the hardest things for me in everything was learning to feel safe and smiling. That is hard. People underestimate just the power and the fear that can come from starting to feel happy.
And that took a decade almost.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it even now, like, you go through stages where, life happens. We get bombarded sometimes. We get layers upon layers upon layers. And the stress of life, the stress of parenthood, just everything can get to us. And in those moments, I have to still, there's no solution. It's keep on talking, keep on doing the work, keep on checking in, getting good support around you.
Mm-hmm.
What does that even look like for you? Just really knowing yourself, like that is the advice I would give to clients.
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to fix this for you. I can't make it better, but I can give you tools for you to do your work. Yeah.
And as you said, surround yourself with incredible people and a support
That's
network.
hard too.
Yeah.
Because if you've never known any different. The trusting in others has to start here. You have to start to trust yourself in your own decisions.
Yeah. Which is challenging because it's failed you essentially up until this point, right?
Yeah.
You've trusted your own decisions and you've gotten into this position.
Yeah.
It's almost, life is like, I don't know, this is going to get real philosophical, but I feel so, I don't know, life has got such great opportunity and potential, but it also has the same on the negative side and such destructive and malevolent sort of an evil sort of connotations to it as well. And so I think and your life is almost the inverse of like you've experienced horrendous things and now you're on this path of just greatness. And how sitting here and you're I feel like your charity is just at the beginning of this rocket ship, right? And you've already had this first year where you've seen shit, this has the ability to be big.
Yeah, it does. And it deserves to be. It really deserves to be because it's playing in that space where there's vortex and each side is stable ground, right? There's support mechanisms. But this middle part is just this sinking hole and where they're catching them.
How do you reflect on where you are now?
I am so proud of myself. And just to saying that, it makes my heart flutter. I'm honestly so proud of myself that what I've endured. I don't hold any anger or resentment or even look at it like it was horrendous. So I just look at my life like it was my life. And I have acceptance, and like sharing my story, it used to terrify me because of the judgments that could come, people's opinions that could come, or people who think that they know what happened behind closed doors have these big mouths that want to take to social media and all the rest of it. One day I was just like, you know what, stuff that. I know what happened. I'm putting my big girl pants on, and I'm not the only one hurting. There aren't just women out there hurting. There are men out there hurting. There are children out there hurting, and there's adolescents out there hurting. We have a generation that's hurting. And the only way forward is to tell the truth and not keep these situations like a dark, dirty secret.
Yeah.
And like you shared, something that I've like found really interesting, when you say you feel uncomfortable with these sort of topics, you're not the only one that feels that. There's so many people in society that it does make them uncomfortable. So when I've had it happen to me that people say, oh, talk to me, tell me whatever, and you start sharing and they go, oh, stop.
Yeah.
This is getting too heavy. Like, it's making me uncomfortable. Yeah. And I used to think, what the hell? You just told me, share. I'm sharing and I get shut down. What that does is give volume to our perpetrators. So we need to educate society on what questions to ask, how to healthily show forms of listening, showing up, holding space. You don't have to say anything. Sometimes just letting someone talk. That's all that they need to feel seen and heard. Someone not telling them to stop.
Yeah. It's and I took some time last night to sort of sit with that as to why I struggle with it, and I've had a couple of guests in this first 100 that have had that have had exposure to domestic violence, and I really struggle with it, and I don't know whether that's because I feel sorry for that child, and I feel helpless to not have been able to obviously be able to help.
Yeah.
Or whether it's so embarrassing for the society to have this problem in the first place. But like you said, you need to be able to have those conversations to be able to confront it, and
and it is a conversation, right? We're not placing blame, shame, labels on anyone. We're just, you and I having conversation.
Yeah. And like you said yesterday though, it's not a strictly a gender issue, right?
No.
And that's where I think it's a society issue.
100%. It's a human problem.
Yeah. And it's not men versus women or the other way around. It's just we need solutions and conversations that involve everyone.
Yeah. Well, it's been 10 years since the Make a Change story was launched to try to stop the cycle of DV. It's increased. We have 10,000 reports a week. Sexual assault relating to DV has increased 78% since 2014. Men need to stop feeling alienated and feeling like they are the problem. Men need to be a part of the solution. They're getting hurt too. Yes, there's like 120 women have already died this year at the hands of someone who they knew, right?
And we're at the beginning of April.
Yeah. So there is a crisis, but there's a mental health crisis. And we're not going to be fixing one big issue by focusing on one gender. We need to intervene and give more resources.
It almost alienates the problem as well.
Exactly.
You just shut out half of them.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens to those people? How do they get the help that they need?
Yeah, it's incredible, and the work you're doing, and it's a problem it's a generational problem, which in itself creates makes the solution so much more challenging. But to stumble upon someone like yourself who has experienced it, who had so many opportunities to go down the path of least resistance and continue to be part of the problem, and not to do that, and to actually be part of the solution is is remarkable. And I just thank you so much for wherever you found that strength inside of you. And as I said, the charity is going to be, I can't wait to see it continue to grow because, as you say, the need is so strong.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is.
All right. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you the 5 normal questions we do ask.
Okay.
But real rapid fire.
Yep, go.
What does success mean to you?
Happiness.
Okay, I'll say, what does happiness mean to you?
Achievement.
What's your morning routine look like?
Walk the dog, have a coffee, and get on with my day.
Then bring on the day?
Yeah.
Okay. What time do you wake up usually?
5:30.
One lesson you've learned in your life?
That I'm capable of picking myself up in the darkest moments and just carrying the flame forward.
Love that. And finally, a guest that you would recommend us to have on the show.
I wish an adolescent could actually come on and share their voice, share their story of where they're at. I don't know how you go about doing that, but I think that giving them a voice would be really empowering.
Well, if you, I'd love that. And if you come across someone that they would be keen for, and their parents would be happy to, for that to occur. We don't even have to disclose their name. Yeah, that would be incredible. Janelle Parsons. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been good. I enjoyed this.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're playing a game of basketball, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. It really means a lot. A heartfelt thank you to Janelle Parsons for her courage, honesty, and the vital work she is doing through Rise and Thrive. Her story is a reminder of the strength it takes to break cycles and the hope that comes from doing so. If Janelle's story moved you, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing the episode. This helps us grow and spread this important message. And if you know someone whose story belongs on this platform, we'd love to hear from you. So drop us a message. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time.